Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Harakagadash, double honors to the apostles and elders, great most honor all while, and Shalom to all the brothers doing the wax searing truth. Um, yeah, so you got the new one. It says on the Guardian, it says, Mpox outbreak in Africa is public health emergency, resembling early days of HIV, says World Health Organization. So you had from way back. I got on the side already. Um, you had like as C-19 was tapering off. There was, and I know, various brothers did like videos on it and kind of covered it and spoke about it. But Bill Gates, who this lad, this geezer, he he's kind of been at the forefront of a lot of the biological aspects of things, and making statements. He's the one who made the quote a while back, basically talking about bringing down the population, and things like the thing that are tied to it as well, to basically make to kind of tied to it as well. And that's basically a means of of how they're trying to enact those things. It's a famous quote. I think it's still on actually, no, you can probably find it on YouTube. If it's not on YouTube, you can just look it was one of his TED Talks, I believe, where he speaks about birth rate, and he speaks about the environment and whatnot, and then it's kind of in line with those what's it called, the Georgia Guidestones. Well, in the Georgia Guidestones, they said they want to maintain humanity under 500 million, and the rhetoric has been for the last little while that people need to be having less kids. We need to rein these things in, and then those things, those jump shots, let's say, tied into that. So this was, as I was saying, this was when C-19 was winding down. You had him say, says some Financial Times, Bill Gates warns of pandemics potentially far worse than C-19. And he said Bill Gates issued a warning for pandemics far worse than C-19, as he called on the governments to contribute to billions of dollars for the next global outbreak. Because what it say, the philanthropist said that while the O and D variants of C-19 was some of the most transmissive ever seen, the world could have had to face a pathogen causing a far higher rate of fatalities or severe disease. So I was basically saying the next one, could be far deadlier. And then, I'll go back to The Guardian, where they're basically saying now, Mpox could be that. It was something it picked up, but then it tapered off, and it was mostly aimed at the most. Their whole community were the main ones that were getting hit by it, and that was because I believe the variant at the time was spreading mostly through like physical contact. So it was that, and then the other thing that was mentioned as well in between, in the post C-19, was bird flu as well, which we can wait and see for how that shakes out, because the Mpox just came back. It's a hot new thing now. So it says an outbreak in Africa of Mpox, the disease formerly known as monkeypox, resembles the early days of HIV. Scientists have said, as the World Health Organization declared it a public health emergency. So yeah, and if you remember how things went with C19 as well, it started off in one spot, and then I think it was like November 2019 when you started hearing about it in China, and then, it picked up speed. So with this being there, we'll see. And the thing is as well, is because of how C19 went, it's laid the groundwork. So then it might just be like, okay, if cases arise, they've already got the justifications, the laws, everything's already set up to switch up and be like, okay, look, we've had a few cases. We're gonna basically make it so, look, we're putting out with the jump shots coming out for it, the what do you call it? We're going, restrictions on movement, restrictions on various things can come in, because as well, that's the thing with C19. It's like it was not like it really wasn't as deadly as they were making it out. Well, not even as they were making it, as the response would make it seem. Because with the response, you would think it was out here decimating people left, right, and center. It wasn't really on that scale. Like the rate of people that were dying was not that high. But then it's because of the response they had to that. When there is one that has a higher rate, then there's even more justification. So it says the declaration must accelerate access to testing, shots, and therapeutic drugs in the affected areas, medical experts urged, and kickstart campaigns to reduce the stigma surrounding the virus. More resources for research were also vital, they said, with massive unknowns about a new variant spreading between people in the Democratic Republic of Congo. As of the 4th of August, there had been 38,000 cases and 1,400 deaths in Africa since January 2022, including more than 1,400 cases and 500 deaths in Democratic Republic of Congo alone this year. This included Clades 1 and 2, as well as a new type, Clade 1b, an offshoot of Clade 1, which appears to be driving the outbreak. So yeah, it's again. So what did it say? The WHO said the outbreak was serious enough to declare a public health emergency of international concern, the category used in the past for Ebola outbreaks, C19, and the 2022 Mpox surge. So yeah, it's because 2022 it didn't really pick up steam, but then we'll see, because with these things as well, it can like happen swiftly, and even with like it's really not swiftly, it's just a matter of the kind of awareness of it, because it's something where they can just be like, okay, look. So I remember it went from like it was over the course of like February to into March of like 2020. It went from like basically normal to like people were like catching it, and then everyone was like, okay, we're putting up like the barriers and shit, and everyone's wearing, and then it was just like, now we're done, everything's shut down. So that can happen swiftly. We'll see. But then again, these what these things tie into is policy, legislation, and that's really what you'll see accelerating, pushing forward. Because that's what with the pandemic, it's basically set. It's everything's been pushed forward, accelerated, kicked into the fastest gear to where, like, anytime it jumped back on the it got taken off the tracks. If it jumps back on the tracks, everything's just gonna move swift. Because it's already been like, okay, look, we're gonna say, oh, loss of life, X, Y, Z, and then as well, because this one comes out of what around Congo, so what the West Coast, you can see again they'll be like, okay, it's more well, they can target Jake off that, just like they did with C19. But like I said, we'll see. It's something that we're watchmen. We watch for these things. We observe for them, and then we know like how they tie in. Because it could also be people getting blighted. But then, regardless of that, it's something that can be used for pushing forward laws. Because 2 Corinthians 2:11 says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. And yeah, that's kind of the key of it. We're not ignorant to what these things can mean, because it could then mean like in the future, and this is what it's August now, midway through August pretty much. Then after that, September, going into autumn and then into winter, that's when any of them outbreaks get even more deadly, and then they could just be like, nah, we're taking action. You never, like, it can easily be pushed that way, but then we're not ignorant. We're watching to it. These things can happen swiftly. So I read this as well. 1 Thessalonians 5:1, it says, but of the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. And yeah, the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. And that's the thing, is for most people it will come as a shock. There's people where they wouldn't even have known there was the previous mentionings of like monkeypox and whatnot. They would have like, they might have seen like the eyes glazed over one headline, and they weren't even trying to mess with it. The most they might have seen is like some skit or something on YouTube making light of the situation, but they wouldn't really have known like where anything in detail about it. And then this as well, like, even though it's hot news, it's like every news outlet basically put an article out more or less immediately as soon as the World Health Organization made their statement. But then what? Most people are not. They're not that informed. They're not that invested. They're not thinking about like world affairs, current affairs. Those things aren't at the forefront. People are now thinking that they're thinking about the presidential race. People over here thinking about these riots that happened recently. They might be only insofar as they're like, oh, it's crazy, it's dangerous, But then other than that, it's like they're not really aware. There's people they're not even gonna imagine. Ukraine was the suit, like everyone was running around with their Ukraine flags. See people with the face painted like the blue and the yellow of Ukraine. They're not going to know anything about Ukraine making an advance into Russia in like the last few days. Because why? That's how much people burn out on these things. But then what does it say? For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Yeah, and imagine that's the example you can use is like 70 AD. Judea, Jerusalem being put on smash, where it's you basically had it taken down, man, decimated, and that was something that Yahushua prophesied of before. Flee ye to the mountains. But then what? It's the warning was there, but then it was who have ears to hear, let me hear, and that's how these things are. It's like with a lot of things that happen, you can look back and see, oh, okay, now there was science. The other good example you can kind of use for that is with the world wars, where you kind of have a slowly escalating set of events, and then it's like even the whole thing with like World War II is basically the not peace agreement. What was it called? The agreement made basically with Germany and the other nations after World War One. impoverish them, and then basically kind of set the groundwork to build them up towards where, you know, World War II could start taking place. Where they'll start building towards uh, setting themselves, essentially put them in a political situation where, you know, they were through, they were you know, paying out the wazoo, they had no money, and then that basically kept that enmity between them and the other nations, to where, you know, that built up a certain kind of, you know, rhetoric and mindset, and that was the base, you know, the baseline of how they're pushing World War II. And that was kind of, you know, the whole theme of how they're, you know, doing it, as far as for in Germany. But then what it's you know, at the time, and even over the course of time, people might have not known, like, oh, you know, how far is this gonna go? They might have been like, oh, there's a new leader that's coming. Okay, that's interesting. But then, you know, they well, even back then they wouldn't have had as much information. Now we're in the time where it's like you can drown yourself in information, man. You can find endless amounts of you know, different bits of information. So now you got to filter it. What does it say? But ye brethren are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. And yeah, that's what we do. We're watching, being sober, because, you know, you look at it and you see, and it's like, okay, that we've already seen the layout of how these things can go. And that's the thing as well, is even the general populace has kind of seen how these medical emergencies go, to where it impacted their life, because they had to stop going to work, stop going to school, couldn't leave the house. You know, if you're outside the house for too long, you're getting a £300 fine. So, you know, they're well aware. But then even with that as well, I saw this on Canada. So this is on the Daily Mail. It says Canadian government warns country to prepare for new virus far worse than C-19. And it said what the Canadian government has issued an advice warning citizens to prepare for a hypothetical new virus that could lead to food and fuel disruptions. So, you know, they're pushing that vibration out, and I think this might have been before before there was even the announcement of the Mpox thing. You gonna let me go back, or what the fuck? That is the dumbest shit ever. Okay. Okay. What was I saying? Yeah, I think it was before. Okay, yeah, it said even released in June. So that says what? The Center for Occupational Health and Safety rolled out a second edition of their Flu and Infectious Disease Outbreaks Business Continuity Plan Handbook. The guide provides information for employers on what to prepare for in the face of another pandemic. In the new edition released in June, they focus on a hypothetical virus that they warn could trigger further disruption than C-19. It states that based on trends from past pandemic flu, there may be a higher average number of illnesses and deaths in age ranges different than what we typically see during annual flu seasons. So yeah, and this is why it's like, you know, you kind of watch for, because you see this and it just seems like, okay, that, you know, they could be trying to push this as the next thing. And the thing is even with, because of how C-19's been, they wouldn't even need that many cases all that much, because people will be like, yo, if it gets to how it was, where it was just amongst everyone before, then everything's gonna get locked down. Then they can justify, oh, we can bring in, restrictions. Okay, everyone's gonna have to wear masks. Everyone's gonna have to maintain distances. You're gonna have to, do as much working from home as you can. All that shit can come back in easy. But then we'll see. Yeah, we'll have to see. What was that other one? Yeah. Second Edge 16. Start from 14. It says, "Behold, the plagues are sent and shall not return again until they come upon the earth. The fire is kindled and shall not be put out till it consume the foundation of the earth. Like as an arrow that is shot of a mighty archer returneth not backwards, even so the plagues that shall be sent upon the earth shall not return again." And yeah, that's, as all these, different situations are happening where it's having military things happen, wartime things happen, you're having that pestilence being moved, you're having a civil unrest happen. All these things have basically, been sent out, and they have time appointed to them, and it's something that can't be slowed down, can't be stopped. That's what we're really witnessing. Because imagine it was mentioned after. I remember it was a thing, because it was just like, okay, it was as the edge was kind of being taken off C-19, where they were like, okay, you got to watch out. The next one will be, there could be a deadlier one that spreads even quicker. And I was like, damn, that, hearing that, you think something else is coming. And we had the bird flu thing. That seems to have been more affecting like livestock, food production, those things. Because in the US, they had to cull a lot of animals off that, and same in the UK as well. I'm not sure about Europe at large, but I know for the UK as well that happened a few times, and it's those effects in the long term, we can't know how much will impact. Because that's the thing, is like inflation, prices going up, those things have already hit, but then it's like multiple things hitting at once, so we can't fully know how much. It's just one thing affecting it, but then you put a big crisis on top of it. It can easily everything can get wild. So it says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? And yeah, that's the mindset most people are in. What shall I do? They ain't got a clue. They're confounded and confused. Because why? It really is. It's as far as for most people, it's mystifying. They don't have answers. They don't know what's coming. They've not had, the truth revealed to them. Even though it's out there to be found easily, they might even have seen videos. They might have walked past brothers, on the street corners, but then for them to receive it, there's been a block. It says, "What? Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges." And yeah, these things are scourges. It's basically, meant to be making you get on point. But then with, and that's the thing, is now we're in the time of the end. We're in a time where it's because it's been a long, drawn out period of time over which those things have not been given any heed whatsoever. So it's all built up steam to where it's super scourges, super famine, super plague, super tribulation, super everything. because this is the time of the end, and that's why you can have, something hit that it hits crazy. I'll read this Psalms 91 from the top. It says, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord Yahweh, He is my refuge and my fortress, my power, in Him will I trust." And yeah, that's kind of key to, sustaining yourself through these things. I would say wisdom and knowledge will be the stability of thy times. And then what? Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. And yeah, it's basically we're gonna have a covering from those pestilences. These things that are coming to hit, to people are getting taken out. Lord willing, then you'll have that covering. You'll have that shield, and then you've got those where there's gonna be men that'll be of the elect where what they're gonna be put to death. And hey, that's written in the scriptures. But then even then, it's in the end, Yahushua is gonna get his, and then by extension the elect, and then through the elect, the rest of the 2/3, and those that don't make it, man, have to go through death by pain to get into the kingdom. They'll receive it, and they'll be in the kingdom as well. Then they'll have their head down in shame. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in the darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. And yeah, that pestilence, that destruction, the terrors, these things aren't gonna cover, because why? We're under the shade of the name of the Most High. We're essentially covered, and that's what we have to have faith in, what we're essentially trusting in to make it through. Because that's the thing is what that time of Jacob's trouble is gonna be legendary, to the point where it's just like, yo, the amount of people that are getting fucked by this is gonna be immense. But yeah, I'll leave it there, man. Shalom. Yabashim Shah, Bashim Kakadash. Shalom.